Hello, and welcome to Budget Commander. On this channel, we'll discuss Magic the Gathering topics with a focus on playing Commander on a budget. We'll cover things like deck building, top cards, deck techs, and more. Let's get started. Hey friends, today we have a Varina Lich Queen deck tech for you. This is a budget deck tech, specifically 1DH, meaning all the cards in the deck are $1 or under, with the exception of the Commander, which can be up to $5. Varina is a 4-to-cast 4/4 zombie wizard that says whenever you attack with one or more zombies, draw that many cards, then discard that many cards. You gain that much life. She also has the ability to pay 2, and you can exile 2 cards from your graveyard and create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. So we're building this deck zombie tribal style. This was suggested by one of the viewers, Zeron. I'm probably butchering the name for sure, but thanks for the suggestion. And if you guys have any suggestions, leave those down in the comments so that we can keep this rolling and give you guys some more videos you'd like to see. As always, we're going to start out by talking about accelerants. Then we're going to move into the game plan. Game plan of this deck is to put a bunch of zombies out and hopefully win combat damage. We also can drain our opponents out with effects like Grey Merchant of Asphodel that make our opponents lose life and we gain life. Next, we'll talk about cards that interfere with our opponent's game plan, the cards that then provide us consistency, and then lastly, we'll talk about the lands that help us get there. So, for accelerants, we are running Talisman of Hierarchy. It's a 2-to-cast artifact that can tap for a colorless, but we can also tap it for a white-black, but we're going to do that at the cost of 1 life. Darksteel Ingot comes in for 3, and it's an indestructible artifact, and we can tap it for any one of our 3 colors. Hedron Archive is a 4-to-cast artifact that taps for 2 colorless, and if we need to, we can pay 2 to sacrifice it and draw 2 cards. Lastly, not necessarily an accelerant, but it can help us fix our mana because it has Island Cycling and Swamp Cycling, is the Jeshian Zombies, a 4-to-cast 2/4, so not great, but it does come with fear. So if our opponents are not playing artifact creatures or black creatures, we do essentially have a 2/4 that is unblockable, which can allow us to continue using Varina's ability, which allows us to cycle through our deck and hopefully get the cards that we need. Like I said, our game plan is to get out a bunch of zombies, so here they are. Blinding Mummy is a 2/2 for 2 with upside that says whenever another zombie enters the battlefield, we can tap down an artifact or creature. We also have the Carrion Feeder, which is a 1/1 for 1. It can't block, which sucks, but if one of our other creatures is going to die, we can sacrifice it to the Carrion Feeder and put another +1/+1 counter on this thing. Over time, this guy's going to get really big, and then your opponents are going to have to deal with it. But usually he's just going to sit out there and slowly grow and grow and grow until somebody either plays a board wipe or has to use removal on this guy. We also have Dreadhorde Invasion, which is a 2-to-cast enchantment that says at the beginning of our upkeep, we're going to lose a life, and we get to amass 1, which means we get to put a +1/+1 counter on an army. If we don't have an army, then we create one, which an army is a 0/0 black zombie creature token. If we ever get our zombie up to 6 power, or any of our other zombie tokens up to 6 power, and it attacks, it's going to gain lifelink, which is great. Undercity Necrolisk is kind of a nerfed version of the Carrion Feeder. It's a 3/3 for 4 that says we can sacrifice other creatures to put +1/+1 counters on the Undercity, and it also gains menace until end of turn. With Varina, if we get rolling, it's kind of a snowball effect. We get more and more zombies, which means we get to attack with more zombies, which means we get to cycle more cards to our graveyard. We don't so much mind sacrificing cards to the Undercity Necrolisk because it gets bigger, makes it harder to block, and ultimately puts more pressure on our opponents. We also have Jasu Ves, a 4/5 for 4, so good stats there. It also has menace, but has the added bonus of if you can kick it for 6, it enters the battlefield with 8 2/2 black zombie knight creature tokens with menace. So more creatures that are harder to block. Great value card here. Liliana's Reaver is also a 4 to cast creature, but it's a 4/3 with Death Touch, and whenever it deals damage to a player, that player is going to discard a card, and we get a 2/2 zombie creature token. Next up, we have from under the floorboards, a 5 to cast card with Madness. We are probably going to discard it using Varina and use it for its Madness cost, which says create X tapped 2/2 black zombie creature tokens and gain X life. So you get to choose how much X is. It's very easy to discard with Varina, so don't worry about that. And then you get to gain some life and get a bunch of zombie tokens. New Scraff Mob is a 0/0 that comes in with 5 +1/+1 counters for 6 mana. And then each time a player plays a spell, you get to remove a +1/+1 counter and then put another zombie out. Just basically gives you 5 zombie tokens, or one big guy or medium-sized guy. As the game goes, you're going to get more and more creatures out of him, so great value card there. God Pharaoh's Gift is 7 to cast, so pretty expensive, but at the beginning of combat on our turn, we can exile a creature from our graveyard. There's going to be a ton of them since we're discarding so many cards, and then if we do, we get a 4/4 zombie, and it has haste, so we can attack with it that turn. 4/4s are good size, put a lot of pressure on our opponents, so we like that. Thrall Parasite is not a zombie, unfortunately, but it does have Extort, which is nice. The main reason we have it, though, is to help deal with our opponent's Planeswalkers or other problematic counter-type cards, because we can pay 2 life and remove a counter from one of those permanents. Shepherd of Rot is great in this deck. He's a 1/1 for 2, but he has the activated ability to tap him and then make each player lose 1 life for each zombie on the battlefield. You do have to be selective about when you use this, but we have plenty of life gain that'll help put us ahead of our opponents. If you can get this guy out and tap him, a few times, you dealt a ton of damage to the table. Corpse Knight is one of those ways to gain life, and that's because he says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, each opponent is going to lose life. Sorry, he doesn't gain his life at all. The next card we talk about will, though, and that is the Wayward Servant, and that says whenever another zombie enters the battlefield under our control, each opponent's going to lose 1 life, and we're going to gain 1 life. Faith of the Devoted also gains us some life. It says whenever you cycle or discard a card, you can pay 1, and if you do, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. If you have Varina out and you're attacking with three creatures, you can pay 3 mana and make each opponent lose 2 life, and you gain 2 life. So this is -6 to your opponents and +6 to you in that scenario. The hard part about Faith of the Devoted being on the table is actually deciding, do I want to play the cards that I have in my hand, or do I want to use Faith of the Devoted to make my opponents lose life and gain some life? So you have to kind of weigh that one out, how the situation demands. We also have Vengeful Dead, which costs 4. It's a 3/2 creature, and it says whenever it dies or another zombie is put into the graveyard from play, each opponent's going to lose 1 life. This helps protect us from board wipes. If we get enough zombies out and our opponents have low enough life totals, they won't even be able to wipe the board because they're going to die. So great protection from your opponents. It kind of gives you inevitability if you get your board big enough. Great Merchant of Asphodel is a ETB creature, costs 5 and is a 2/4. When it enters, you're going to gain X life. Your opponents are going to lose X life, where X is equal to your devotion. Devotion to black, so specific to the black symbols on the table. So enchantments, artifacts, creatures, any of those permanents that have a black symbol, you get 1 devotion for. So it can be really swingy, and it's a great creature to blink over and over again. Just whittle your opponents down. Gem Palm Polluter, you're probably not playing it as a 4/3 for 6. You want to use it for its cycle ability. You're going to pay 2 black, discard it, and draw a card, and then you're going to have target player lose 1 life for each zombie in play. You're going to have a ton of zombies out. You cycle this guy. Even if you just had 3 zombies, this would be fine. The opponent loses 3 life, you draw a card, and that's fine. You can amp this up for if you had 10 zombies on the battlefield, pay 2, somebody loses 10 life, and you gain a card. This seems really good. Pontiff of Blight gives all of our tokens and all of our other creatures Extort. Extort just says that we can pay a white or a black and make each opponent lose 1 life, and we gain 1 life. So if you got nothing else going on, play 1 spell and extort it a bunch with all of your zombies that are out. It's great. Debt to the Deathless is a great way to just eliminate players. It costs X, 2 white, 2 black, and it says each opponent loses 2 times X life, and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So this one can actually gain you a ton of life because the number is not fixed. It's based on how many opponents you have. Great way to kill people off. Once you get into the late game, you just have a ton of mana. Shadowlance makes it so it's really hard to block your creature advantageously. Gives that creature first strike, and then you want to usually go straight to combat instead of, playing spells during your first main phase. And the reason is because you can pay 2, 1 and a black, to pump it +2/+2. So if they block, all you have to do is essentially pump it until you're going to eat their creatures, or is it advantageous for you. Great card in this deck because you want to be attacking with Varina. Another card that's going to help you continue or keep the pressure up is Lord of the Accursed, because it gives all other zombies +1/+1. And if we need to, we can pay 1 and a black and tap it to give those zombies menace, making them harder to block because they're bigger and they have to be blocked by 2 creatures. We also have Gleaming Overseer, which gives all of our zombie tokens hexproof and menace, and when it enters we get to amass 1, giving us +1/+1 to one of our armies, or giving us an army in the first place. Diagraph Captain gives all of our zombies +1/+1. It also says whenever another zombie you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life. Another one of those inevitability cards. And this also has Death Touch, so he can sit out there and be a great blocker. Wonder is a card that is not a zombie, but it fits in great because we can discard it with Varina, and when it's in our graveyard and we have an island, all of our creatures get flying, which makes them very hard to block, which means we're going to be able to continue cycling through our deck, getting the cards that are most beneficial to us in that particular circumstance. Eternal Skylord is another way to give all of our creatures flying. It says zombie tokens you control have flying. It's a 5 to cast, 3/3, and when it enters we amass 2. So we're going to get a 2/2 zombie out of it, or we're going to pump up one of the armies we already have. Liliana's Mastery is another way to pump up our team. Gives all our zombies +1/+1, and when it enters we get 2 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Necromancer's Covenant is kind of a jack of all trades, do it all card because it gives us some graveyard removal. When it enters, it's an enchantment that costs 6, 3 white, black, black. We exile all creature cards from target player's graveyard, so whoever has the most creatures is usually who you want to target, unless there's really a creature you need to get rid of in a different graveyard. We get a 2/2 zombie creature token for each creature exiled this way, and all of our zombies get lifelink. So this helps keep us in the game longer, and it makes it harder for our opponents because they're not able to bring those cards back from their graveyard. We also have Desecrated Tomb. Whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. With Varina's ability, we are going to be paying 2 and creating zombie tokens. We could potentially be doing getting multiple extra bats out of it, and then we have extra sacrifice fodder for some of our other cards. We also have Approach of the Second Sun as kind of a contingency plan. Approach of the Second Sun is a 7 to cast card that gains a 7 life, and we stick it back 7 cards from the top, and then if we cast it a second time, we just win the game outright. This is great because with Varina, you play this, then you attack with a bunch of creatures, you draw Approach of the Second Sun, discard something else, and that gives your opponents 1 turn to deal with you. If they can't eliminate you in 1 turn, then you're going to be winning that game unless they have a counterspell or some other kind of way to deal with it. Other ways that we're going to interfere, we have Fanbearer. This is a zombie that just taps down one of our opponent's creatures. Executioner's Swing is going to give a creature -5/-5 as long as it dealt damage, so it might be to you, or you might even use this on an opponent's turn. When an opponent attacks somebody else, their creature gets damaged, you're able to finish it off with the Executioner's Swing. Dark Salvation can either nerf a creature or actually kill a creature off. Cost black, XX, and then what you're going to do is put X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens onto the battlefield, and then up to 1 target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each zombie that player controls. So you're going to be able to nerf somebody's creature or hopefully kill them off. Guafa Hazid Profiteer is just a great card that prevents your opponent's creatures from attacking and blocking. Kind of gives them a dead card on the battlefield if it's just a big beater. Pillory of the Sleepless. You're going to equip another beater with this. That creature can't attack or block anymore. And then at the beginning of upkeep, the controller of that creature is going to lose a life. Grimgrin. Corpse Born is a 5 to cast 5/5. It enters the battlefield tapped, and you don't get to untap it during your untap step. So that seems bad, but it says we can sacrifice another creature and untap Grimgrin and put a +1/+1 counter on it. So with Varina's ability to just be able to make zombies, you can just essentially pay 2 to untap him and get a +1/+1 counter. And then whenever you attack with Grimgrin, you get to destroy target creature defending player controls and give Grimgrin another +1/+1 counter. Your opponents are going to have to deal with this guy, or else he's just going to steamroll them. We also have Overseer of the Damned, which is not a zombie himself, but when he enters, you can destroy a creature, and whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, we get a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. We also have Time Wipe, which is a board wipe, but protects us a little bit because when we cast it, we get to return one creature we control to our own hand, then destroy all creatures. Esper Charm is here. It's pretty versatile, as all charms have three choice slots. You can either choose to remove an enchantment that's causing you trouble, to draw 2 cards, or probably not in a multiplayer game, but you can also make somebody discard 2 cards if somebody's just way out ahead. But usually you're going to be choosing one of those first 2 modes. We also have Mortify, which destroys a creature or an enchantment. Despark, which can exile any permanent with a CMC 4 or greater. And Cast Out, which just deals with any permanent no matter what. As long as Cast Out's on the battlefield, that permanent stays exiled. You can also cycle it for 1, so discard it to draw a card. Great value there. Undead Augur is a zombie 2/2 4/2, and he says whenever another zombie or the augur dies, we get to draw a card and lose a life. Great value there. Can also help protect you from those board wipes to some degree, in that if you lose your board, you get to draw a bunch of cards and hopefully be able to refill the board very quickly. Read the Bones. You're going to scry 2 and then draw 2 at the cost of 2 life. Fact or Fiction is going to allow you to get 2 or 3 cards typically. So you're going to reveal the top 5 of your library, and the opponent's going to put those cards into 2 different piles, and then you get to keep one of the piles to keep, or choose one of the piles to keep. The other pile goes to your graveyard. Blood Divination costs 4. You're going to sacrifice a creature and draw 3 cards. Fallen Shinobi is a zombie ninja, so that's great. You're going to want to ninjutsu him in. So that means you wait until one of your creatures is unblocked, and then you pay the ninjutsu cost, 2 blue black, and then you're ideally going to be getting in. And it says whenever Fallen Shinobi deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles the top 2 cards of their library, and then until end of turn you may play those cards without paying their mana cost. So great way to get some card advantage. You don't get cards from your own deck, which is a downside, but getting some from the top of your opponent's deck might give you something that you don't have as much of, which would be artifact or enchantment removal. But even if you just get a land off of this, still you're getting some great value. Whispering Madness is a 4 to cast wheel effect that has Cipher, which means you can exile the ability onto a creature, sort of. It says each player discards his or her hand and then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. If you cipher it, then whenever you exile the spell encoded on a creature, and then whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a copy of Whispering Madness. So a great way to wheel and continue keeping your own hand full, but you have to be selective about it because you don't want your opponents getting a bunch of cards off of it either. Possessed Scab is going to return an instant or sorcery from our graveyard to our hand to allow us to recast it. We also have Ever After, which gets 2 creature cards from our graveyard back to the battlefield. Great value for 6 mana. And Ever After goes on the bottom of our library, so we can recast it again. Entreat the Dead. You do want to cast this for its miracle cost. It's okay otherwise, but you're going to return X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you can get it for its miracle cost, it's amazing. Otherwise, it's just a fair card, but that's just fine. Curator of Mysteries fits in great in this deck. It's a 4/4 flyer for 4, but it says whenever you cycle or discard another card, scry 1. With all the cards you're discarding with Varina, you're going to be able to scry and fix the top of your deck pretty well so that you get at least the one good card on your next draw. Forgotten Creation allows you to draw 3 new cards every single turn. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may discard all the cards in your hand. If you do, draw that many cards. Oh, I thought it was 3 cards. Sorry, this just helps you cycle your whole hand, so it's another ability like Varina's, fills up your graveyard, which is good too. Soul Herder is a 1/1 for 3, not great stats there, but it says at the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. This is great on any enter the battlefield creature, but even if you don't have an enter the battlefield creature, you're going to give Soul Herder a +1/+1 counter. So, ideally you're using it on the Noose Graph mob, which is going to get you extra 2/2 zombies, or Grey Merchant of Asphodel, or any one of those other enter the battlefield effects. But this is a great value card that's going to sit out and get bigger and bigger over time, forcing your opponents, just like Carrion Feeder, to deal with it. As far as lands, we have Irrigated Farmland, Azorius Guildgate, Azorius Chancery, which give us white-blue. We do get to cycle Irrigated Farmland if we don't need it. We also have Tranquil Cove to give us white-blue. Dimir Guildgate and Dimir Aqueduct give us blue-black. We also have Dismal Backwater, Jawar Isle Refuge for blue-black. Orzhov Guildgate gives us white-black. Forsaken Sanctuary, Orzhov Basilica, and Scoured Barrens also give us white-black. We have Tainted Field, which gives us a colorless, but as long as we control a swamp, it can give us white-black. Arcane Sanctum comes in tapped and gives us any of our colors, and then we have Exotic Orchard, which gives us any colors our opponent's lands can produce. As far as fetches go, we have Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse. Esper Panorama, which can also fetch us a plains, island, or swamp. We can also use it just for a colorless mana and wait until we have an extra mana just sitting around to sacrifice it and fetch out a land we need. Mortuary Mire comes in tapped, gives us a black, but it also allows us to put a creature card from our graveyard on top of our library, helping us to draw a card that we want or need. Temple of the False God allows us to tap for 2 as long as we have 5 or more lands. And then we have Orzhova, the Church of Deals, which gives us a colorless, but we can pay 3 and a white-black to have target player lose a life and us gain a life. So we have nothing else going on. We can just apply pressure to somebody and whittle them down, gain us a little bit of life. I like it because it's just a fun card to use. As far as basics go, we have 7 islands, 7 swamps, and 6 plains. Average CMC of this deck was 3.93, with any cards that had X in their cost factored in at 7. So this is on the more expensive side, which means you have to make fewer errors to play this deck right, or depending on your group. But you have to make fewer errors when you have a deck that has a higher CMC typically, which is fine. I just like it because it's really fun to play. If you like Zombie Tribal, give it a whirl. Let me know how it goes. Otherwise, let me know which commander you'd like to see next. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. Peace. Thanks for watching. You can help support this channel by hitting that subscribe button. This will help keep you up to date on content from Budget Commander. If you liked the video, make sure you like the video. Leave me a comment with your thoughts on this topic. And if you think someone else could benefit from this video, feel free to share. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk with you next time.